New at 4, a Utah human rights advocate is being accused of lying about having cancer to solicit donations. After receiving a tip earlier this month, South Jordan police began investigating 28-year-old Coco Berthmann. Berthmann has been in the news previously for sharing her story of surviving trafficking. The complaint who tipped police off to the
Human trafficking. Two words that, when put together, signify some of the very worst in human behavior, invoking mental images of hurt, assault, enslavement, and abuse. Human trafficking remains one of the fastest growing profitable crimes on the planet, with many states fighting an uphill battle against organized gangs. The numbers are so vast that odds are not only is human trafficking occurring in your city, it could be happening in your very own neighborhood. For Coco Berthmann, this was a reality she knew all too well.
Hi, I don't know how you ended up watching this video, but I'm sure grateful. If you would see me on the street, you would probably think I'm the typical girl next door. But I'm here to tell you that this narrative is not true. I wish.
Coco Berthmann was born Sandra-Renata Ruff in picturesque Germany in 1994. Her upbringing was far from ideal and could only be described as horrific. For the first half of her life, Coco was a victim of familial abuse so graphic that it can't be detailed on YouTube. She was trafficked, degraded, and suffered emotional and physical pain at the hands of her family and others. She even described witnessing the murder of her sister as a young child, causing massive emotional and psychological damage to an already fragile mind. She would endure this treatment until she made a desperate bid to save her own life. On November 2nd, 2009, 15-year-old Coco ran away from home to the soundtrack of Celine Dion. As she later told one reporter, "I went to the door, put in my iPod, put on Taking Chances by Celine Dion, and then I just ran." She took that chance, and Coco made it. Escaping a decade and a half of mistreatment should have given Coco an opportunity to celebrate freedom, but sadly, the abuse did not end. The male therapist assigned and tasked with helping the underage teen cope with her tragic past began sexually abusing Berthmann. No matter where she went, young Coco was not safe, and there was nobody invested in providing her with the security she so badly needed. Eventually, Coco would rise from the ashes of destruction her lifetime of abusers had tried to bury her under. Ready to strike out on her own in another country, Coco joined an au pair agency to move to the United States. At 21 years of age, she found herself in Utah in February 2017. She attended college in Salt Lake City from 2018 to 2021, where she earned an associate's degree in marketing. And she found love. Coco also found her purpose. She would become a bastion of hope, a beacon of promise, and an icon for not just enduring, but thriving against any obstacle life could throw her way. In her bio, she described herself as an author, activist, and health promoter. To many, it was much more simple. She was a hero. Soon, Berthmann would embark on a flurry of speaking engagements, interviews, book deals, and public appearances. She would no longer suffer in silence. Rather, she would heal loudly and boldly encourage others to do the same. She founded the Coco Berthmann Scholarship Fund and served as the board president. As one write-up put it, Coco empowers all sectors of society to combat human trafficking by educating and speaking internationally, as well as teaching law enforcement, first responders, forensic staff, and communities about the horrifying reality of human trafficking. Coco had come a long way since those early hellish days in Germany, and she was eager to share her story of tenacious survival with the world. Along the way, she would gain over 60,000 Instagram followers and accolades from dozens of celebrities, politicians, influencers, and fellow survivors of abuse. Coco was so impressive, her organization was reportedly merging with the Elizabeth Smart organization. Elizabeth Smart was herself a victim of horrible abuse and mistreatment for 9 months at the hands of deranged strangers. Smart now serves as a victims advocate, author, and inspirational speaker. Coco appeared on Elizabeth's Smart Talk podcast, and the two shared the stage at several events, including the Human Trafficking Policy Summit and the Maloof Foundation on April 17, 2021. In a move of pure empowerment, Coco would cover the same Celine Dion that inspired her escape from torment on her YouTube channel later that same month. Her life had finally come full circle. Things would take a downward spiral for Coco in early 2022 when she shared shocking news with close friend Amy Bowler. On that cold January morning, Amy learned Berthmann had stage 3 mantle cell lymphoma cancer. In response, Amy started a GoFundMe for Coco on February 3, 2022 to raise funds for treatment. The page stated that this aggressive form of cancer has a 30% chance of survival and a life expectancy of just 2 to 5 years. The account detailed Coco's treatment at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, as well as additional treatments with specialists in Chicago and Alaska. The support was overwhelming, and in just 2 weeks, over $10,000 was raised. After a lifetime of battling adversity, it didn't seem fair that Coco had yet another mountain to climb towards maintaining happiness. Coco was destined to inspire survivors and fighters. Coco was going to make a difference. Coco was going to change the world. Only now that fight was going to be impossible. But it wasn't stage 3 cancer or a 2 to 5 year life expectancy that was going to bring Coco down. No. Because Coco was lying. Her story, her inspirational tale of overcoming abuse and fighting cancer, it was all just a massive fabrication. According to a booking affidavit, police began investigating Berthmann in early February 2022 after receiving information she was claiming stage 3 cancer in order to obtain funds for treatment. Amy Bowler, who started the fundraiser, told detectives that Berthmann showed her medical records indicating she was diagnosed with cancer in January 2022. A detective called Berthmann for proof, and because she was too weak to meet in person, Coco promised to send the officer her medical records via email. The officer waited and waited. Minutes turned to hours, hours to days, and days to weeks. Coco never responded. When officers were finally able to meet with Coco in person, she told them that she was treated at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, but left after a few weeks when she couldn't be treated with chemotherapy. The medical records she promised would clear her name ended up being a stack of tax paperwork, car warranties, and bills, but zero proof of any medical diagnosis. Warrants were served at the Huntsman Cancer Institute and the Utah Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing to find out what medications Berthmann was prescribed. They discovered Berthmann had never been a patient at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and the only medication ever prescribed to Coco was for anxiety. GoFundMe confirmed that the money was drained from the account in several withdrawals over the month, and not a dime had been used to pay for medical treatments. The ruse was up. The child trafficking, her mother sending people to the US to kill her, witnessing her sister's murder, her work with the FBI as a trafficking witness. Not a single word of it was true. The lies were deplorable. But the GoFundMe with the false cancer claims, those were against the law. On February 16th, 2022, 28-year-old Coco Berthmann was arrested and booked into the Salt Lake County Jail for communications fraud in connection with her cancer scam. In early May 2022, Coco was officially charged and is awaiting trial. If found guilty of this Class C felony, she faces up to 20 years in prison and fines of up to $250,000. After the news of her fraud was uncovered, many were slow to react. According to the American Crime Journal, organizations like the Maloof Foundation, Adaptive Ops, Operation Underground Railroad, and Utah Senator Mike Lee continue to either profit or benefit from the bogus human trafficking horror stories. Elizabeth Smart, however, was quick to cut all ties, disgusted with the actions of Berthmann. Coco Berthmann is a predator of the worst kind. She knowingly and intentionally damaged victims and survivors of abuse by falsely claiming her own story for attention and financial gain. She was so convincing that she managed to charm legions of people in powerful places, politicians, activists, law enforcement, without needing to share a shred of evidence. Someone should have looked into her story. Someone should have asked questions. Someone should have known better. Because while it is true that we should believe victims, there are some who utilize the victim badge as a weapon to defame, destroy, and profit. Coco isn't alone. According to a 2010 study by the National Library of Medicine, up to 10% of all sexual assault allegations are false. This picture was taken at the Human Trafficking Policy and Education Summit in April 2021. This is the same event where Elizabeth Smart and Coco Berthmann would later share the stage together. In the wildly circulated photo op, Utah Senator Mike Lee meets human trafficking survivors and activists Julie Whitehead, Elizabeth Frazier, and Coco Berthmann. In just 1 year, 2 of these 3 alleged victims were outed as frauds. Coco and the people like her make it unsafe for the community they claim to be passionately fighting for. Coco Berthmann could have been a bright light for survivors. Instead, she is nothing more than a dark stain on the cloak of lies she wove one fabrication at a time. She will live on as a cautionary tale and reminder that not all perpetrators of abuse wield a whip, weapons, or fist. Some abusers, like Coco Berthmann, Elizabeth Frazier, and countless others, do it solely for their own selfish needs. She has gone from the hero of her own story to the villain, and it was all her own doing. Coco Berthmann once dreamed of living her life as an inspiration and influencer by creating massive lies about her past. Now she must face the very real truth. The possibility of spending decades of her life within the welcoming arms of the Utah prison system.